Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. We are now in spooky season. For today's video, we will be talking about some atmospheric, dark, gothic maybe, books that you should be reading this fall. Before we get into the video though, if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That way you never miss another one of my videos. In front of me, I have 17 books with the exception of 2 that I don't have physical copies of that I want to talk to you guys about as well. So I have a total of 19 books in front of me that I want to talk to you guys about in this video. Now keep in mind, this video we are going to be talking about dark, gothic, maybe fantasy romances, maybe dark small town romances. Overall, the main theme that you're going to find in this stack, the books are going to be dark. They're going to have darker, heavier themes to them. They're going to be gothic. They're going to be books that you might want to check your trigger warnings. They also have the same type of element and tone, meaning that they are going to be very atmospheric reads. Now, I don't really have a lot of horror in here or thrillers. I kept it more of dark, gothic fantasy romances or some dark romances, or maybe a couple YAs that just have that dark theme in the background, you know? So keep in mind, this is not spooky season horror thriller recommendations. This is more of spooky season dark atmospheric books that you all should read in the fall. So let's start off with 2 books that I read. Now this is part of a 4-book series. I've only read 2 so far. I am taking my time because I freaking love this series so much. 5-star series for me. Also keep in mind, these books again are books that have been 4 to 5-star reads in the past. So not steering you wrong. You cannot go wrong with reading any of these books this fall. So let's talk about the Jack the Ripper series by Kerri Maniscalco. Okay, these books, let me see if I can just move. Okay, I can't. I'm sorry. Ignore my stack. It'll eventually shrink down as we go further down the video. But for now, this is what I have. So let's talk about the Jack the Ripper series. Okay, if you want atmosphere, with a little bit of gore, if you want creepy mysteries, dark in a sense of there's blood and gore, sometimes there's dissecting of humans, keeping in mind that the way that this author writes and how she writes her book, not only do you get goosebumps, not only is the atmosphere there because all of her books are very, very atmospheric. In each one of her stories, there's kind of an unspoken element in there, and it sometimes makes you believe and think that you're going to be reading some type of dark fantasy just by the way that the author twists the story and kind of manipulates you into thinking that there will be a fantasy element. Just that alone, you guys. What more can you want to read in the fall? Okay, these books are so atmospheric. The narrator of these books is amazing. We're following the same female main character, and each book is set in a different country, in a different place. There's a different murder mystery to be solved, and they're just so gripping to read in the fall. You know, they're dark, they're gloomy, they're atmospheric, and I just love them. The first one, we're following Jack the Ripper and a murder mystery behind that character, and the next one we're following Prince Dracula. Just know that when you go into these books, none of it is what it seems. You will be shocked on the reveal. You will also be manipulated at times, thinking that things are going to turn fantastical. I just love these books so much. You guys need to read it this fall. These first 2 books anyways are very, very heavy on the fall aesthetic. I mean, we got Dracula, we got Jack the Ripper, gruesome murders. What more can you ask for? Then we have Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I love this book so much because it's so beautiful. It's lyrical. It is written in a way that like romanticizes a murder, you know? And I just love this author's writing. I've read 2 books by her so far, but this one is the one that gives me a heavier atmospheric theme, which is perfect for the fall. This story, it takes place in a little island in the state of Washington, I believe, near the Puget Sound or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. It takes place in this small town. You know what happens in small towns when it comes to a murder mystery or a thriller. People talk. The townspeople are very weird and it's very atmospheric. There's also a little bit of magical realism in here, which is what I love about this author's writing so much, is that in every book she sprinkles in a little bit of magical realism. Top that off with beautiful lyrical writing. I'm a sucker for that. In this story, we're following Emery, and I think a night before her high school graduation or something, her childhood love has been accused of murdering her best friend. The townspeople kind of exiled him and made him feel unwelcome that he decided to up and leave after that tragic night. Years later, he's come back to the town because he is going to bury his mother. His mother has recently passed away and he wants to bury his mother. The story goes from there. This is very interesting because it's a slow burn, but the romance is so beautiful and it's just so elegantly put in this murder mystery. It kind of takes a back seat at times, but it's done so well. We're basically following Emery, our main character, and how she kind of struggles with, do I believe that the love of my life has actually committed this heinous crime, or is there something else involved in this murder? The townspeople don't like him. They despise him. They don't make him feel welcome at all. They call him a murderer, even though there wasn't enough evidence to point him as the murder suspect and put him in jail. She's torn between feeling these feelings and rekindling these feelings with him, also possibly being aware of the fact that he could be a murderer. He could have murdered her best friend. So this book was so beautiful. Again, very atmospheric. The mystery is slow burn, but it's really good. I did not guess the plot twist. The magical elements in here were just exceptional. They were just a little extra to keep you interested. And again, the romance I thought was done very well, was very romantic. The next books are the only young adult books in this stack that I want to talk to you about. They're not so dark that you have to check your trigger warnings, but they have dark elements in them. They have a darker aspect to them, if that makes sense. The first one, okay, this book, I read this last year, I think. I freaking love this book so much, and that is The Scarlet Alchemist by Kaylee Lee Baker. If you haven't read this one, read it now in the fall because it's perfect. It's so atmospheric. It's so divine. It's such a divine of a book, if that makes sense. So in this world, we are following Zelan. Her dream is to go to school and become one of the royal's finest alchemists. When you become the royal's alchemist, you get to move into the palace and you're surrounded by the royals and you are their personal alchemist. What I love about this book is the magical elements of it, the alchemy. I just freaking love that. How magic is manipulated in a sense of alchemy is just so intriguing and interesting to me. I love it. I want to read more books like this. So she has that going for her, you know, because she's poor and she lives in a smaller village. She lives in the southern side of China, and in this village, it's impoverished. Everybody's poor. People are starving. People are trying to make ends meet. Her aunt and uncle own this kind of like knick-knacky pottery type of store, and that's how they make ends meet. But on the side, in order for her to feed her family and help her family, she dabbles into a little bit of illegal alchemy, meaning she resurrects people for a cost from the dead. In this world, you are not allowed to do that. That is really bad. That is dark alchemy, dark magic, whatever you want to call it. So in order for her to help her family stay afloat and for them to be able to survive in such poverty, that's what she does. And the narrator of this book is so freaking fantastical. Her voice is so beautiful. This is based on Chinese folklore, I think, and it's just so interesting to read about. Some of the events with the royals in this book actually did happen in a sense, explained in the back of the book in the author's note. And I thought that was very interesting to read about. Also, it's gory. The way that this book starts is so funny because we have our main character Zelan. She doesn't take crap from anybody. She doesn't care if you're the royal. She's not gonna kiss your ass. Like, she is sassy. She has every right to be. She's cocky and she's funny. It's funny following her and her adventure in this book. And it's also very interesting how she practices illegal alchemy, how gory and dark it is, how the dead bodies don't really come back being themselves. It's gory, it's gruesome at times, but it's so freaking interesting. If you haven't read this book already, you guys, don't sleep on it. This is perfect for the fall. Then we have The Revenant Games, and this is one of the most recent books I've read so far by Margie Fuston. This one has maybe a little bit of trials. We got witches, we got vampires, we got humans. We got humans living in this world amongst witches and vampires. Witches and vampires don't get along. It's very brutal. Literally, if they ever get into an altercation, war will hit and everything, including humans, will be wiped out. In this story, we're following a 17-year-old character by the name of Bly, and Bly is a human living amongst vampires and witches. She lives right split down in this little poor village where humans live, try to make ends ends meet, try to just survive living amongst these creatures in between the vampire side and the witch's side. In this world, blood is very essential, very important. So the way that these humans make ends meet is by selling their blood either to the witches because it makes their magic more powerful, or to the humans because obviously it makes them more powerful as well. But vampires and witches do not trade blood, even though that is very needed and wanted, because obviously a witch's blood and a vampire's blood is more powerful. They don't do that. Instead, they hold a game and a tournament every year, and I'll explain that in a second. Back to following Bly. Bly is living in poverty. She doesn't want to stay there. She's heard of another place where humans are free. She decides to go foraging on the witch's side in the forest with her sister, even though they were not supposed to go, because once you get into a certain side or section of the forest, whether it's the vampire side or the witch's side, if you are not careful, you will get attacked, killed or eaten or sacrificed by either or. She decides to go searching for magical mushrooms. Something happens to her sister. They get caught by witches who basically take her sister, obviously murder her. Every year, the witches and the vampires host this tournament. On the witches' side, if you catch a vampire and bring it to the witches, then you will be able to resurrect somebody from the dead. If you catch a witch and bring it to the vampires, you will have immortality. So Bly is kind of stuck because her best friend, who happens to be the love of her life, has also been cursed. He has an X amount of days left before he dies. And obviously she wants to resurrect her sister. So she decides to team up with her best friend slash love of her life, childhood lover, and try to play both sides so that they can get both things at the end. But during this time, she meets this very handsome vampire who is quite different, who is actually nice to her. He's different from other vampires. I forget his name, but his name is, I love his name so much. I forgot his name, but he has such a beautiful name in this story. And I'm not gonna say anymore. Just read it, okay? We have woodsy, atmospheric, dark vibes. We have vampires, we have witches, we have a little bit of magic in there. Not too heavy, but a little bit. We have a tournament, we have romance, we might have, I don't want to say more. I don't want to say any more because I don't want to ruin it, but this was such a good read and is so perfect to read in the fall. This is the only graphic novel that I'm going to talk to you guys about, but it's so beautiful. The illustrations are so breathtaking and the story is very dark. So I wanted to add it onto this list. Over My Dead Body by Sweeney Boo. If you haven't read this already, what are you doing this fall? Okay, this is so atmospheric. We got witches, we got dark magic, we got dark elements in there that you wouldn't see coming. Dark academia. Just the beautiful illustrations of this book are fantastical. The way that this book starts, you guys, is just chef's kiss. It's so gripping from the beginning. We're following Abigail, and Abigail is a witch in this very pristine witchy academy. Everything is fine. She's just trying to get her grades up. She's just trying to go day by day as a student here until one day she wakes up and realizes that her mentee is missing. And so the story unravels and goes from there. The darker sides and elements of this book are brought to light in the most beautiful illustrated way. This book is just her trying to solve that mystery and try to find her missing. I'm not going to say much because it's a graphic novel, but it's so beautiful and it's definitely one that you want to read this season. Wouldn't be a dark, spooky book recommendation if I didn't recommend these beloved books of mine that I love. I will die on the hill for these characters. Everything about these books are just freaking fantastic. Haunting and Hunting Adeline, H.D. Carlton. You guys, these are very dark, okay? Obviously check your trigger warnings, but they're so freaking amazing, fantastic, dark, very triggering, very disturbing, but we love them. We love these books. They're so freaking amazing. I can't say better things about this. This is basically a stalker romance. And that's it. That's all I'm gonna say. We're following Adeline and we're following Zade. Every time I say Zade's name, oh my gosh. Anyways, we're following Adeline and we're following Zade. Adeline is a famous romance author, and she happens to live in this gothic, haunted, we have ghosts by the way, haunted Victorian mansion. And one day she's doing a book signing in a little small bookstore, and Zade happens to just stroll in there for some reason, and he sees her and he becomes absolutely obsessed. Psychopath obsessed with her, but we love him for it. We love him because even though this is very dark and there's non-consent in some of these books, we just love him. We love him because he not only is kind of a psychopath, but in the best way, okay? In the best way, if that even makes sense. We love him because he is part of this organization, umbrella organization, where they help rescue victims of sex trafficking, women and children. And the way that he does it though, He's unforgiving, let's just say. And it's dark in that sense. There is a lot of sex trafficking themes in here. There is a lot of just disturbing things. Again, check your trigger warnings. These books are just everything to me. They're perfect for the fall. We have a creepy mansion, which is haunted. We have a stalker romance. We have dark themes. He's very heroic, even though he is a stalker, okay? We have all the things that you're asking for in a dark romance. This is a classic by now. If you haven't read this when you're starting off with dark romance, even though it's really dark and heavy, you should. You should read these books because they're so freaking amazing. They're amazing. They're phenomenal. I will not stop talking about these books. Before you read the duet, okay, you need to read Satan's Affair. And Satan's Affair, we're following Sibby. And Sibby is kind of a psychopath, but we love her for it. This one is very heavy on Halloween because it is following a Halloween carnival. And I don't want to say much because it's a short little novella, but you need to read her story first because she pops into these books and you'll appreciate her character for what she is and what she does within this story if you read her story first. After you read her story, then you read the Cat and Mouse duet, and then after that you read the last book, which is another novella following another character that's based in this world and her story and her romance, and that's Where's Molly. You will not go wrong this fall if you read these. If you're gonna dabble into dark romance, just be aware that it's very dark and heavy. I think book 2 is worse. Some people couldn't even finish it. Get past 300 pages, okay, of agony and just very messed up shit. And then enjoy the ride the rest of the way because it gets so much better. But just hold on in there, okay? Hold on and just know that it's worth it. These books are amazing. This is the first book in the series. There is 3 books in the series. I've only read 1, so I'm only suggesting 1 so far, and that is Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. This is a small town romance about a college girl who summons a demon. But the freaking demon in this book is so freaking sexy. Like, I've never been so obsessed with the demon in my life, okay? If this guy, like, is summoned, I don't think I would mind. I don't think I would mind if I summoned this man because he's so freaking sexy. Anyways, you need to read it. You need to pair it with the audiobook. It's the only way to get the best experience that you're gonna get. It's just a fun ride, okay? We have creatures, we have monsters, we have creepy woods, we have a dark, gloomy town that's always raining, we have a Victorian style academy or college, we have witches, we have demons, we have just everything, occult. This is the perfect book for the fall. It is atmospheric, it is so freaking fun, and it's so sexy too, you guys. You should read it. We're gonna step into a lighter book that's also, you know, part of a series, but again, I've only read book 1. It's still a dark romance, but it's funny and it's quirky and it's fun. And that would be Butcher and Blackbird by Brianne Weaver. Again, pair it with the audiobook. This is a rom-com about 2 serial killers. The beginning of this book was so freaking fantastical to me because she is found and stuck in a predicament. You know, she murdered who she had to murder, and now she is sitting in a cage because she didn't think it through with him. But the way and the quirkiness and the way that this is written and the way that this is narrated, we have dual narrations, meaning when it's the female part, the female narrator jumps in even though we're reading from the male's point of view, and vice versa. This was so good. It was such an experience. It's so funny. It's very gory. It's disturbing. Again, check your trigger warnings, but it's such a fun time. And what I love about this book is that they're 2 broken souls that have dealt with so much crap in their lives. So many disturbing things have happened in their lives that it led them to serial killing. They're dark. They're taunted by the tragedies that they've experienced in their past lives, but yet they find each other. A friendship blossoms. They decide to compete in who gets the next serial killer. Whoever gets him wins competition, and it's so fun. They make it a game, but again, it's dark. The setting is dark. Again, check your trigger warnings, but it was so fun. It was funny. The banter was perfect. It was fun. It was just so good, you guys. In the next little stack that I have some Dracula books, some vampire books for you to kind of keep you on your toes this season. The first book is probably the least... The first book is more about the writing style, where it's set, because it is a slower paced book. It is a slow burn, but it is historical. It's beautiful. It's captivating the way it's written, and that's why I love it so much. Dracula by Dacre Stoker and J.B. Barker. This was so good. Again, pair it with the audiobook. We are in historical times in London, I believe. I think it's set in London, which I love. Anything that's set in a different country and there's vampires and Dracula in it, come on. We are in Dublin in 1868, historic times. In this book, we're following a little boy by the name of Stoker. Stoker has this unique illness where he's only given an X amount of time to live. And so he's got the worst immune system. He's very sick all the time in bed. He can't do things that normal kids can until one day something happens and he wakes up and he's all better and he's in great shape and he is living his life. We're following his life in diary or letter form with his encounters and interactions with possibly Dracula or vampires or monsters. It's beautiful, like it's so well written that even though you're just following him in his life and his very small little bits of encounters with these beasts, you can't help but to keep reading because it's just so gravitating, because the writing is just so lush and rich and it's just perfect. This was done so well. I can't say this and express this enough. This book, you're reading more about the feeling that it gives you, the vibes, the atmosphere, the dark gloominess, that with just one sentence, you're freaked out of your mind and you're looking over your shoulder thinking if Dracula or a vampire is right behind you. Those are the kind of books that will always stay in my mind and live rent-free. The way that some books make me feel, I will never forget. I will never forget and I will never stop talking about them, and this is one of them. Next up, we have Blood Orange by Karina Hall. This is part of the Dracula duet. It's a Dracula retelling, basically. Very steamy. And in this book, we're following Dracula and his love interest. This book is done so well because you hurt and you feel for Dracula. You are just following him and his love interest through many years and decades and time frames that pass. And it's romantic and it's beautiful, but it's so sad at the same time. I'm not gonna tell you why, but it's so sad at the same time, and it's sexy, you guys. It's sexy, it's steamy, it's romantic, it's love explained between Dracula in such a beautiful, lush way. There is a second book to the series. I still have to read it, but I enjoyed this so much. It was just so beautiful. A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This I just recently read. I just recently read this in the beginning of September. This, you guys, what can I say? In this one, we're following one of Dracula's wives, and this is written in diary style form, and we're following one of his wives in particular by the name of Constanza. It's her experiences with this polyamorous relationship that she is involved with Dracula and his other romances and his other love interests in this book. It is so beautiful. It is the way that S.T. Gibson wrote this book. It is just exceptional. It is gold. Like, oh my gosh, the writing. I'm not going to tell you what happens in the book. Just read it, okay? Just read it. We're reading from Constanza's point of view, who happens to be one of Dracula's brides, and her experiences and encounters with their polyamorous relationship, how toxic it is, how depressing it is to be her in this time, you know, of her life. It's just so good. That's all I'm going to say. It's really good. It's perfect for this time of year. If you haven't read it already, you need to stop what you're doing and pick this up. Now this, I think, was one of my first vampire books that I've read when I started reading heavily, and this also was my first Grady Hendrix book, my introduction to him. This was no disappointment. This was such a good freaking book. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And in this book, we're following, let's just call them the Stepford wives. Okay? Very Southern-esque, small town feel, very Southern-esque women who all have different lives. They're all bored. They all have families and kids, and they're all going through different things in their lives. And they decide to have a book club and meet once a week and talk about books and their book. Everything is fine. Nothing happens in this town, you know, it is a small town. Everybody gossips because it's a small town. They all talk crap about each other until one day this very handsome, mysterious stranger moves into this neighborhood. The women are intrigued. The story goes from there. Could he possibly be a vampire? Yes. Was this book gory? Yes. Was it disturbing at times? Yes. There's a scene in here that I will never forget that I'm like, Grady, why did you have to? Like, I don't want that image in my head. It is so disturbing and so unnecessary, and like, I didn't really appreciate it, but whatever. I will never forget that scene. But anyways, yes, it's gruesome. It's a little gory. It's disturbing, can be triggering, and it's sick. But it's so good, okay? It's so good because it's creepy, it's horror-esque, it's atmospheric. It's just, you guys need to read it. This was so fun. There's a book club involved. Come on. Next up, I have the only thriller in this stack, and this one is just about the setting, where it's set, what takes place, what happens. Basically, the whole plot of the story, what it's about, is why I put it in this list. The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I love Riley Sager's writing. I love his books. This is one of my favorite ones just because of its freaking set in this creepy old rundown mansion on the cliff in an island in the middle of nowhere. And just what it's actually about is so freaky. In this story, we're following Kit and Lenora. Lenora, she can't talk, by the way. She can't speak. She's in a wheelchair. She can't communicate to anybody because of what happened when she was younger in her childhood home. And that is massacre within her family. For some reason, Lenora is the only one that survived this. She was in the home where her mother, father, and sister were brutally murdered. She was brutally injured as well, but somehow she survived it. She's like 80 years old now, and she needs help. She needs a live-in nurse. Kit is recruited to be her home nurse aide. One day, somehow, Lenora communicates to Kit in a way that she can, because she can like tap her fingers or something. I don't remember, but she can communicate, not talk, but she can communicate in a way where they understand her, that she wants to tell Kit what actually happened that night of the massacre, what happened, her side of the story. Back then, she was kind of accused of possibly committing this heinous crime, but there wasn't enough evidence to put her away. So she's not very liked or welcomed in her town, in this town. One day, she finds a way to tell Kit that she wants to tell her side of the story, and she has Kit type it out for her. The story goes from there, and this is so creepy. The house is freaking creepy. Things are happening in the house. It is just so good and so atmospheric to read in the fall. It's just so perfect. When the murders happened, they made a chant, like they made a creepy song to go with the murders themselves. The town's kids made this creepy type of song based on these murders. I have to read it to you. At 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope, stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. That is freaking creepy, okay? So Lenora is trying to talk about her innocence. She wants to tell Kit her side of the story. And obviously the story goes from there, and it's so gothic, creepy. We got everything. We got dark, rundown mansion on the island. Creepy things happen. Lenora herself is creepy because she can't really communicate, and the way that she tries is creepy. Okay, the fact that Kit is living in this house trying to help Lenora and how the story unravels is just, it's shocking. It really is. The last two books that I want to talk about are horror books, and I'm not a horror girly. I love to watch a good horror movie. Reading about it though is something totally different, and something that I have to work up to, because these books are disturbing. These books are scary. These books are just a different type of like fuckery, okay? So I have to pace myself. But these are the ones that stood out to me. Actually, these are the two ones that stood out to me that I own. I did want to mention The September House. You want to read this book because it's set in September. And in this book, we are following our main character. I forgot her name because I don't have the book with me, but we're following our main character who moves into this beautiful, old modern-esque styled house. Her and her husband got it dirt cheap. Just doesn't think anything of it. Until one day, her husband just up and leaves. The reason why this house was very dirt cheap and was such a steal was because it's known to be haunted or murders happen there. Her husband ends up leaving one day because he couldn't stand it anymore, after realizing that they've lived in this house for X amount of time and realizing that every September the house is haunted. It's visited by ghosts, some of them friendly, some of them not. They're all gory and horrific looking, though, very scary looking. And also the walls bleed. But the main character just can't help herself. She loves this house so much, she's willing to deal with that. Her husband, though, up and leaves and doesn't come back. And the story goes from there, you guys. And this story is very creepy. It's scary. We got tortured souls. We got ghosts that tragic things happen to them in that house. We have very bad entities. It also can be very comical at times because of the way that the main character handles her experiences and encounters with these ghosts. It's funny, but it's also gruesome, and it's also gory, and it's disturbing, and it's creepy, and it's set in September. And what else can I say about this? Then we have Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. First of all, the cover. You know what makes this book so exceptional for me is the fact that it is written so freaking well, so beautiful. Again, another one of those lush books with lush writing. In this story, we're following Vera. This was Vera's childhood home. Her father was a serial killer and committed his crimes in the basement. So that alone can mess up a person, okay? Mentally, emotionally, like everything about that can just mess a person up. So she moves away. She forgets about the house until she gets a phone call from her mom asking her to come home because her mom is dying and she needs help. She needs her daughter to help her get rid of things in the house and kind of be there with her during the last few days or months that she has to live. And so Vera has no choice but to move back to her home, and the story goes from there, you guys. And again, it's one of those books that is written so beautifully, very lush, rich writing, very slow burnish, but it was so good. It was very atmospheric. It's gothic, it's gory, it's disturbing again, and it was really good. The last book I have to talk to you guys about is my favorite horror book of all time. If you ask me what horror book recommendations I have for you, this book is on the top of the list. This book always makes the cut. This book is the first one you should read because it's, again, written so well, written so magically beautiful, written so good that it creeps the crap out of you, even if there's parts where not a lot happens. Old Country by Matt and Harrison Corey. First of all, these two gentlemen, they did such a phenomenal job because we're getting dual POV. We're getting a husband and a wife's points of view in this book. They didn't make the wife sound whiny or just like she has no idea what she's doing. They projected her character very, very well. And what can I say about this book? It's so freaking scary. It's so creepy. Okay, it's so creepy. This book follows a happily married couple. They are city folk. They just recently got married, Sasha and Harry. They live in the city, but they kind of want to slow down. So they decide to move somewhere off the grid. They get so lucky that they find this cute little rundown farmhouse in the middle of nowhere with like 50 acres of land because they intend to live off their land for a killer deal. So they can't resist, they can't refuse. They pack up their city life and move to this countryside. Everything is perfect. They have this cute little rundown cottagey country style farmhouse, beautiful. They have so many ideas and they have such a great experience moving in. Everything's fine. They're having their coffee on their front porch, overlooking the valley, overlooking their acreage, having all these plans of having animals and farming and growing their own crops and things like that, and just living the dream, okay, the countryside dream. Until one day their friendly neighbors come over and they say, we just wanted to welcome you to the country life. We wanted to show you around and kind of give you a little bit of a heads up that, by the way, hi. I bet you're wondering why the lighting has changed, why my hair is straight, why I'm wearing different clothes. Well, as I'm editing this video, I realized that the very last clip where we talk about Old Country is nowhere to be found. I'm thinking that my camera just stopped recording and I didn't catch it in time. So sorry about that, you guys. There is no last clip. There is no outro clip. So here we are, several days later. Let's continue, right? Let's pick up where we left off, shall we? Okay, as I was saying, the older couple, their lovely neighbors next door, have them over for dinner to kind of show them the ropes of country living. Everything is fine and great until they pull them aside and they say, yeah, we have to tell you a few things about your property. This whole valley here happens to be cursed by spirits, by entities, whatever you want to call it. And every year you have to form different rituals at the beginning of every season in order to keep these spirits or entities or whatever this is away from you. If you don't do that and you don't do the rituals, very bad things will happen to you. And so the story goes from there, you guys. I'm telling you, this book, slow burnish, but it's so brilliantly written. Like, I can't say better things about the writing in this story. It's very interesting. What actually happens, what the actual book is about, what these spirits are so frightening, so scary. I will never forget the fall season. Okay, if you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. The freaking fall season in this book is so terrifying. I still have it vividly in my mind. I still think about a certain scene that scared the crap out of me and will continue to scare me even after a year or so of not reading this book. It is that terrifying and I will never forget it. So there you have it, friends. That's it for today's video. And if you stuck around this long, thank you so much. I really appreciate every single one of you guys. Hopefully you can find new favorites in this list. I know all of these books impacted me in a different type of way, and they're just perfect for the fall. Hands down, they are such great books for the fall. So thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will catch you on my next one. Bye!